44 years ago, on June 30th, 1980, relatives made a gruesome discovery in this house in Hamden Township. The bodies of two elderly sisters in their 70s were found brutally stabbed. One was stabbed more than 40 times, the other was stabbed more than 50 times. The autopsy report chronicled massive bleeding in the chest cavity. Essentially, their lungs were punctured and they drowned on their own blood. It was a massive homicide in a quiet neighborhood that produced a full court press by the police in Cumberland County. For 4 years passed without anyone being charged. And then in July of 1984, this woman's brother, Ronald Eugene Sperry Jr., was riding his bike around Lemoyne. He was 19 years old at the time. He was working as a busboy in a restaurant. He was questioned by police about a bicycle and perhaps a golf cart. He was charged with receiving stolen goods, even though the family maintains his innocence, and that had nothing to do with this crime behind us. He was fingerprinted and lodged in Cumberland County Prison. Within weeks, those fingerprints were sent in to the state police, and they were matched against fingerprints found on a broken basement window and at least one fingerprint inside the house. Two experts would testify. The FBI and the state fingerprint expert would testify that those prints, some of those prints found in this house matched Ronald's. He went on trial in Cumberland County, a 5-day trial that was adjudicated by a jury brought in from outside of the county, and he was found guilty. He was up for the death penalty, but his life was spared by the jury. He was instead given life in prison at the tender age of 23. He's remained in state prison ever since, but you, your mother, and your family have been fighting to get him out all of those 40 years. He's now 64 and in poor health, and you're down to your last-ditch effort to get Ronald out of jail for a crime that he maintains to this day that he didn't commit. And he won't say he did to try to advance his case for commutation. How has this affected you and your family, and most of all, Ronald, all these years? And this is Natalie Sperry.
Well, being that he's innocent and that we know that he is innocent, he lived at home at the time of the crime. I just graduated from high school. He had been out for 2 years and was working, and he actually had work records with witnesses that testified that he was at work at the time the crime was committed. When it happened in our neighborhood, we were all in shock, and it was nothing that had ever happened before. We talked about it as a family. My brother did not do it, is the bottom line. And yes, it has impacted. My parents both died, I say, of a broken heart. One of a heart attack, one of a stroke. They worked tirelessly. They spent a lot of their hard-earned money trying to get him out, thinking that, well, he was innocent. It should just be thrown out because he had an alibi, an ironclad alibi. But they had to go through the trial. I was away at school at the time. I was not participating. I was aware that it was going on. Since then, my parents made every effort to get the conviction overturned. My mother wrote to every congressman, representative, governor, president, everyone that that she could think of, the Centurions, the Innocence Project, everything to try to get him out. But the bottom line is that he's innocent, and I think that made it harder for him to try to get out because no one wants to admit they made a mistake. And it's just been very, very difficult, and it's had a traumatic effect on my life and my brother. It's just ruined his health, mentally and physically.
And now you're afraid he may die in prison.
I am. He almost died of a diabetic coma in 2011, and he, he doesn't get medical care there. That's what he needs. He doesn't get dental, vision. He just, and psychologically, I think it's 10 times harder when you're innocent to be in prison than when you know you did something wrong and you deserve to be there.
In a PennLive special report, we look at all the evidence that was presented at this 5-day trial, including what appears to be witnesses pinpointing the time of the murder of these two women and establishing what Natalie said was Ronald's alibi. Yet none of it seemed to matter. He was convicted, and despite numerous appeals, he's remained in jail for a life sentence. We're also going to talk to the lawyer who handled the case 40 years ago, and we're going to talk to Ron himself on what he thinks about being jailed for over 40 years and his family's efforts, undying efforts, to get him out. They're seeking a commutation, which so far hasn't been acted upon by the state, but perhaps his story will spur action. Check out the special report on PennLive.